So I printed out my remarks for this service, left the area briefly, and this is what I came back to. This right here. My puppy literally ate my sermon. That is Manny, and I just want to say yay for hard drives, right? So I'm glad for this opportunity to say hello and introduce myself to you in the Octagon. I'm Patti Hanks, the lucky ministerial intern at UUC. I've been here since January, and I will be staying until October. This internship is the last step before my final interview with the powers that be at UUA, and then I get to plan an ordination. Woo! I was raised in Los Angeles County. I raised my children in Michigan and made the happy choice to move to St. Pete about 13 years ago. The year we had a snowstorm in Michigan on Halloween and Easter, and I said, check please. And I'm grateful to have this ministerial training experience with Reverend Amy, who is so kind and wise and creative, and with all of you in this congregation, and be able to do it so close to home. I started this internship so ready to learn and dig in and help, especially in RE, and to support Reverend Amy and all of you in every way that I could. And then, as many of you know, 4 days into my time here, I woke up and the right side of my face was paralyzed. And long story super short, it was Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, RHS, and my kids informed me that it's what Justin Bieber got that forced him to cancel his tour. RHS is contagious, which means I had to pause my internship, stay at home, not do any driving, and send my husband, Mike, out solo to Arizona to be with our son and his wife for the birth of our brand new grandbaby, Amaya. I know. During that time, I kept thinking about that saying that I've heard so many times about how life is what is actually happening while you're planning something else. It seems like there's never a shortage of things that show up on our path that we truly did not expect. One of the things I found out about myself during this stretch is that I really, really, really don't like asking for help. Maybe you can relate. I've decided that much of this for me comes from being raised in a Mormon family who traces its roots on both sides back to tough pioneer folk. I grew up listening to stories about my ancestors who crossed the plains in the covered wagons from Illinois to Utah, including stories of people who had to sew up their own wounds on the trail with rope. In church on Sundays, we sang songs like Onward Christian Soldiers and Put Your Shoulder to the Wheel. I'm going to sing you a little part of this. Put your shoulder to the wheel, push along. Do your duty with a heart full of song. We all have work, let no one shirk. Put your shoulder to the wheel. Thank you. My church and family culture were geared towards helping others, which is a lovely value. But if the message is that the highest priority is to be strong and brave and being sick or feeling needy or unwell or vulnerable in any form can feel like a failure of will, even weakness. I've spent lots of time thinking about this. When I was home with my 2 dogs and not able to drive, many people offered to help. I passed on their offers, trying to figure out how to do everything for myself. I decided to call a grocery store delivery service and order food. The woman helping me sent me photos of bananas to see if I liked the level of ripeness. She said, I know people care about the balance of yellow to green. What do you like? I burst into tears. I told her, I appreciate your kindness so much because I'm sick and I can't get out of the house right now. And she said, girl, I got you. You got to ask people for help. Ironically, that same day I was working on our religious education, RE curriculum, and lesson plans which that month were built around the theme of vulnerability. One lesson was about the vulnerability it takes to make friends and the courage it can take to say to someone, "I like you." Another lesson explored how it takes vulnerability to show our true selves to each other and the courage it can take to say, "This is me." The lesson we illustrated today in A Time for All Ages with the TARP was about recognizing the times in our lives when we can't do something on our own and how we sometimes need to say, "I need your help." So there I was being a ministerial intern, writing a curriculum for the kids about being vulnerable and how important it is to ask for help, and in my own life, struggling to pick up the phone and call for a ride, or for anybody to shop for me, or to walk my dogs. I didn't want to admit how scared I was, and I felt like a mess. I brought up my difficulty in asking for help in a class here at UUC recently, and someone nodded with understanding and said they often felt the same way. They said that UUs are also very independent, a very independent lot, and are notorious for not wanting to ask for help. It is such a human condition, and our reasons for avoiding being vulnerable are deeply personal and specific to our own experience. Adrienne Marie Brown, a social justice activist and one of my favorite thinkers, wrote in her book, Emergent Strategies, that most of us are socialized towards independence, pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, working on our own to develop, to survive, to win at life. She points out that competition exists all over nature, but as humans, we struggle in showing our weaknesses to each other, often competing when it isn't even necessary. She adds, we could reason our way to a more sustainable processes, but we sometimes choose to hide the things that make us feel vulnerable and miss out on the community building that can happen when we lean on others and allow them to lean on us. I see the paradox. We feel pulled towards independence and personal autonomy. Achieving individual goals feels good, and it is good. At the same time, we're wired for relationships, and we survive best in community. Our ancestors are the ones who made it through, partly because they formed groups and figured out how to eat and keep each other safe from bears and each other. I'm inspired by the examples of how community works in nature. I read an article in Nature magazine that explained that when Canadian geese are migrating, they take turns at the front of the V, alternating their roles as weight carriers and resters. The author explained that they do this for two reasons. First, to conserve energy so that they can fly longer, and second, to ensure that there are always members of the flock who can keep track of the other birds in the group. Did you know that when a goose is injured during migration, 2 geese will land with it and stay until it is healed or it dies? And then they catch up with the rest of the flock. What do they teach us? There is strength in flocking. I had heard this before about migrating geese, but didn't know it was true for many kinds of birds, including pelicans. I see pelicans flying solo majestically over the bay almost every day on my walks, which is why I'll never move. I didn't know that pelicans that fly alone beat their wings more frequently and have higher heart rates than those that fly in formation. Maybe I'm going to holler out to them, "Phone a friend!" I love that one of our UU principles points us to our interrelatedness. We're part of a web of existence with all of nature and with each other. That's a good reminder to us on Earth Day. Bernard Loomer, a theologian who wrote a lot about connection, said, I just love this, "Love is an acknowledgement of our essential interrelatedness. We love because we are bound to each other. When we reach out to each other in sympathy, compassion, and love, we acknowledge our connection to each other." I resonate with this idea of a web of relationships. That's what communities, including this one at UUC, are built on, webs of relationships. My experience is that people come and land in UU spaces for many reasons. Many of us love working together in a collective way to make better paths in issues of social justice, for racial and economic equity, for environmental justice. Most UUs I know are also drawn toward a place to explore life's questions and value the emphasis on lifelong learning. We come from different backgrounds and have arrived here with a variety of needs and a variety of reasons. And we find ourselves in community. In the last 4 months that I've been here, I see how you care for each other. You offer rides, you deliver food, you listen, you give comfort. You could probably point or wave to somebody in the Octagon today. That's one of my favorite things about the Octagon. You can people come in, you're like, hey, which you can't do when you're like all lined up and you just see backs of heads. And somebody in here has made UUC feel like a supported place to you. I know it. I visited the Pastoral Care Associates monthly meetings. They're the people who wear the green ribbons on their name tags. It's Bill, Kathy, Pan, is that how you say her name, Pan? Pan, Lauren, and Eloise is the chair of the Care Circle, and she also attends these gatherings. I love the explanation they gave me at the last meeting. They described a continuum of care in this congregation. The pastoral associates are available to listen and provide support and help with connections to local resources. The Care Circle is here for rides and meals and other specific needs. Covenant groups are formed to check in with each other. There is a minister and other staff who offer support. All of us as individuals watch out for each other, hopefully noticing when someone we know is missing and they may need a reach out. We have a practice in our UU tradition, and I've never been in a congregation that didn't do this in some form, of sharing our joys and concerns and sorrows. Usually stones or some other object are dropped in the water, creating concentric circles and ripples representing how we are affected by each other. We can say, I feel happy and strong. I feel sad and flattened. I feel nervous. I feel sick. I am celebrating. I am suffering. I am rejoicing. Sharing our woes with those in community is an example of vulnerability. We are sharing something about ourselves, hoping to be understood and known. I'd like to finish this. By taking us back to the tarp and say, hot lava happens. And in many ways, we are on the tarp together. At some point, we will need help. And likely at some point, we can offer help. It feels great to help. But it can only happen if somebody is willing to accept the help. That's how that works. Let's leave the final word on this topic to the theologians known as the Beatles. Help. I need somebody. Help me if you can. I'm feeling down. And I do appreciate you being round. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please help me? Thanks.